My name is Evelyn Parker. I'm 35 years old, and for most of my adult life, I chose stability over romance. Not because I couldn't find someone, but because I didn't want to build my future on hope alone. I owned my house before I met him. 3 bedrooms in a quiet suburb, nothing flashy, but it was mine. Bought 5 years earlier when the market dipped, and everyone told me I was being too cautious. I had about $80,000 in investments, a paid-off SUV, and a routine that felt safe. Then I met Daniel Wright. We met 2 years ago at a charity fundraiser where I was volunteering. He worked in marketing, charming, articulate, the kind of man who made people feel seen when he spoke to them. He laughed easily, listened well, and when he talked about the future, he used we without hesitation. 6 months in, he moved into my house. A year later, he proposed, right there at the same venue where we'd met. I remember the way his hands shook when he opened the ring box. I said yes before he even finished the sentence. For a while, everything felt right, until it didn't. The first crack appeared during a Sunday dinner at his mother's house. Her name was Margaret Wright, the kind of woman who smiled while dissecting you. Widowed for 7 years, elegant, sharp, and very clear that her son was her legacy. After dinner, while Daniel stepped outside to take a call, Margaret poured coffee and said casually, "Daniel tells me you own your home outright. That's impressive for someone your age." "Thank you," I replied. "I got lucky with timing." She stirred her coffee slowly. "Have you thought about what happens to it if something happens to you?" I glanced toward the door. Daniel was still outside. "I have a will," I said. "Everything goes to my sister and her kids." Margaret's smile tightened. "That seems short-sighted. You're about to be married. Shouldn't your husband be protected?" "We're not married yet," I said carefully. "Once we are, I'll update things." She set her cup down with a soft click. "I just worry," she said. "It makes me wonder about your commitment." When Daniel came back in, the conversation shifted, but the air had already changed. In the car, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "She has a point, you know." "About what?" "About protecting me." I kept my voice calm. "Protecting you from what?" "What if something happens to you before the wedding?" he said. "I'd have nothing." "You'd have whatever we decide in a prenup." His jaw tightened. "We haven't talked about that." "And we should," I said, "but not like this." He crossed his arms. "It bothers me that your sister would get everything. I'm going to be your husband. Doesn't that mean something?" "It does," I said, "but we're not married yet." That night, he barely spoke to me. Over the next few weeks, the comments became casual. How Mark added his fiancé to the mortgage before the wedding. How Ashley's husband put her on his accounts to prove trust. Each sentence landed like a quiet accusation. Then came Tuesday. We were supposed to finalize wedding details. The $15,000 venue deposit, split evenly between us, had been paid months ago. Daniel came home, skipped dinner, sat at the kitchen table with his laptop. "We need to talk." I set down the knife I was using to chop onions. "I don't feel secure in this relationship," he said. "You keep everything separate. It's like you're planning an exit." "That's not fair," I said. "I worked for what I have." "And now I'm asking you to share it," he replied. "Isn't that what marriage is?" "After marriage," I said, "you're asking for access to things I owned before I even met you." He stood up. "Then we're not getting married until you show me I matter." My chest tightened. "Put my name on the house, on the accounts. Show me you're committed." I stared at him. "You're giving me an ultimatum." "I'm setting a boundary," he said calmly. That night, he slept in the guest room. I didn't sleep at all, because deep down I knew something was wrong. This wasn't about love. It was about control. The quiet was intentional. I realized that about 2 days after Daniel moved into the guest room. He wasn't angry, he wasn't dramatic, he didn't shout or accuse. He simply withdrew. No good morning, no good night, no casual touches as he passed me in the hallway, no questions about my day. Just absence. And absence, I learned, can be louder than yelling. When he did speak, it was clipped, controlled, almost rehearsed. "Have you thought about what I said? I just need to know where we stand. I don't want to marry someone who doesn't fully choose me." Each sentence was calm, reasonable, impossible to argue with without sounding cruel. I started questioning myself in the quiet moments. Was I being too rigid, too protective? Was this just what commitment looked like? But then he'd casually drop comparisons. Emily's fiancé added her to the deed before the wedding. She felt so secure after that. My coworker said when a woman hesitates like this, it usually means she's planning to leave. He never said you're selfish. He didn't have to. The implication did the work for him. One night, while I was washing dishes, he leaned against the counter and said lightly, "You know, if you trusted me, this wouldn't be such a big deal." I turned off the water slowly. This isn't about trust, I said. It's about timing and boundaries. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Funny, he said. That's exactly what people say when they don't want to share. That was the moment something inside me went still. Because if this were about protection, he'd be talking about prenups, life insurance, legal safeguards that worked both ways. But he wasn't. He wanted access. Before vows, before signatures, before accountability. And always, always, his mother's voice echoed just beneath his words. The next morning, he left for work without saying goodbye. I called in sick. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, the house quiet in that hollow, suspended way it gets before something breaks. And I started researching. Not feelings, not relationship advice. Facts. I read stories that made my stomach turn. People who added partners to property titles as a gesture of love, only to lose everything months later. One woman forced to sell her house after a breakup because her ex demanded his share. Another who spent years paying off a mortgage only to walk away with nothing because she'd trusted too soon. I closed the laptop and stared at my reflection in the dark screen. I wasn't paranoid. I was being careful. That night, Daniel asked again. So, he said, standing in the doorway, have you decided? I met his eyes. I'm thinking about it. It was the truth, because I had made a decision, just not the one he expected. The next morning, while he was at work, I picked up my phone and called the wedding venue. My hands were steady when I dialed. That surprised me. The woman at the venue recognized my name immediately. Good morning, this is Harbor Ridge Events. How can I help you? Hi, I said. This is Evelyn Parker. I have a wedding booked for December 14th. Yes, Ms. Parker, congratulations. How can we assist you today? I stared out the kitchen window while I spoke. The backyard looked exactly the same as it had the day before. Quiet. Ordinary. Like nothing in my life was actively unraveling. I need to make a change to the contract, I said. Is it possible to transfer the deposit entirely into my name? There was a pause. I'm sorry, could you clarify? The reservation was originally under both my name and my fiancé's, I said evenly. I'd like it to be solely under mine. Another pause, longer this time. May I ask the reason? The wedding may not be happening, I replied, but I'd like to keep the venue for a private celebration. I didn't explain further. I didn't need to. I'll need to check it with my manager, she said gently. Typically, both parties have to consent, or one party must buy out the other's share. I'll buy out his share, I said without hesitation. Please send me whatever paperwork is required. Of course, give us 24 hours. When I hung up, I sat very still. No rush of triumph, no fear, just clarity. That night, Daniel came home late. He didn't ask where I'd been or what I'd done all day. He reheated leftovers, ate in silence, and retreated back to the guest room. Before closing the door, he said, "Let me know when you've made up your mind." I almost laughed. The paperwork arrived the next afternoon. I signed it, transferred an additional $7,500, and officially bought out Daniel's portion of the venue deposit. A confirmation email followed minutes later. Reservation confirmed. Contract holder, Evelyn Parker. Event type, private celebration. The venue coordinator even added a note. Please let us know if you need assistance rebranding the event. Rebranding. That felt right. I didn't tell Daniel. Not out of spite, but because I wanted to see how far he was willing to go without leverage. For the next 2 days, he barely acknowledged me. He slept in the guest room, texted his mother constantly, asked once, only once, if I was ready to be reasonable. I said I was still thinking. That was technically true. 3 days after the venue transfer, I came home from work and heard voices in the kitchen. Daniel's, and another woman's. I stepped inside and immediately felt it. The tension, thick and sharp. Daniel stood by the counter, arms crossed. And beside him was Margaret. Her posture was rigid, her purse sat neatly on the table like it belonged there. "You're home," Daniel said flatly. Margaret stood up. "You want to tell her?" she said to him. "Or should I?" Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he slid an envelope across the counter toward me. "Read this." I picked it up slowly. Heavy paper, law firm letterhead. Margaret's lawyer. My chest tightened, not with fear, but with disbelief. The letter demanded that I immediately add Daniel's name to the deed of my house, the title of my vehicle, my investment and savings accounts. It cited verbal promises made during the engagement and threatened legal action if I didn't comply within 14 days. I looked up. "You sent a lawyer after me?" Margaret's smile was thin. "Someone has to protect my son's interests," she said, "since you clearly won't." "We're not married," I said. "I don't owe him anything legally." "You owe him respect," she snapped. "You proposed. You made promises." "I promised to marry him," I said quietly, "not to hand over my assets before the wedding." Daniel finally spoke. "So it's true," he said. You really won't do this? No, I said. I won't be threatened into it. His voice shook. Then we're done. I nodded slowly. Yes, I said, we are. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Margaret stepped between us. If you can't provide security, she said coldly, you don't deserve him. I grabbed my keys. I'll stay elsewhere tonight, I said. Daniel didn't stop me. I spent the night at my sister's place, replaying every moment, and realizing something terrifying. This hadn't started with an ultimatum. It had started long before that. I woke up on my sister's couch with a stiff neck and a pounding headache. For a split second, I forgot why I was there. Then my phone buzzed. 3 missed calls. Unknown numbers. A text from Daniel. You didn't have to run. I stared at the screen for a long time before setting the phone face down. I didn't respond. By noon, the calls started coming from people I barely knew. Daniel's friends, his coworkers, even one of his cousins I'd met exactly once at a barbecue. Daniel's devastated. You really blindsided him. Everyone thinks this could have been handled privately. Privately. As if his mother hadn't delivered a legal threat to my kitchen. By mid-afternoon, my sister handed me my phone. You need to see this. Daniel had posted. Not naming me, just vague enough to feel righteous. Some people show their true colors when money enters the picture. I thought I was marrying someone who believed in partnership. Turns out I was wrong. The comments were immediate. You dodged a bullet, King. Financial abuse is real. No man should have to beg for security. I didn't comment. I didn't defend myself. I waited. Then my phone rang again. This time, it was the wedding venue. Ms. Parker, the coordinator said carefully, we had an incident this morning. My stomach tightened. What kind of incident? A woman identifying herself as your fiancé's mother arrived demanding access to the reservation. Shortly after, your fiancé joined her. I closed my eyes. They wanted to cancel the event, she continued. When we informed them the contract is now solely in your name, things became heated. What did they do? They threatened legal action. We had to ask them to leave. I exhaled slowly. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. We just wanted to make sure you're aware, she said. Also, just to confirm, the deposit is non-refundable, and neither party other than you has legal authority to alter the contract. Thank you, I said. I appreciate the heads up. When I hung up, the picture finally snapped into focus. This wasn't about heartbreak. It was about pressure. Corner me emotionally, rally outsiders, force my hand. So I did something Daniel and his mother clearly didn't expect. I called the number on the lawyer's letter. When the man answered, I spoke calmly. This is Evelyn Parker. Yes, Ms. Parker. Have you decided how you'd like to proceed? I have, I said, and I want to be very clear. Silence. Your client has no legal claim to my assets. We are not married. There is no common law marriage in this state. Continued harassment, interference with my employment, or attempts to intimidate me will result in a restraining order and a defamation claim. He inhaled sharply. We're simply protecting our client's interests. Your client's son lived in my home for 18 months and paid minimal rent, I said evenly. If we're discussing legal standing, I could just as easily pursue back rent. Silence again. I've documented every demand, I continued, every message, every threat. If this escalates, I'm prepared. I'll pass that along, he said. He hung up. That evening, I returned home. Daniel's car was gone. The guest room was empty. Most of his things were missing. On the kitchen counter sat his house key. And a note. You chose money over me. You're going to regret this. I read it once. Then I threw it away. Because the truth was, I hadn't chosen money. I'd chosen clarity. And I was done being quiet. I thought the silence afterward would feel like peace. It didn't. It felt like standing in the eye of a storm, knowing the outer bands were still spinning. 3 days passed, then 4. I went back to work. I answered emails. I cooked meals for one. I slept better than I had in weeks, but not deeply. There was always a low-level tension humming beneath everything, like my body knew this wasn't finished. It wasn't. My sister called me late one evening. You're not going to like this, she said. What now? Daniel posted again, this time with details. I opened Facebook. There it was, a long post, emotional, carefully written. He said I'd taken the wedding deposit and disappeared, that I'd canceled everything without telling him, that I'd left him financially exposed after promising a future. He didn't mention the ultimatum. He didn't mention the lawyer letter. He didn't mention his mother. The comments were brutal. She used you. Classic gold digger behavior. Men always get screwed in these situations. I felt my chest tighten, but not with shame. With anger, because lying publicly isn't a misunderstanding. It's a strategy. I didn't respond right away. I screenshot everything. Then I called my own lawyer. $300 later, I had confirmation of what I already knew. "This is defamation," he said, "and you have receipts." I could have sued. Instead, I chose something more effective. I wrote my own post. Not emotional, not defensive, just factual. For clarity, the wedding deposit was originally split 50-50. When my ex-fiancé demanded I put his name on my home, vehicle, and bank accounts before marriage, and his mother sent a lawyer to threaten me, I ended the relationship. I then legally bought out his share of the venue deposit. I have the paperwork to prove it. I attached screenshots, the venue contract, the buyout agreement, the lawyer's demand letter, with names redacted. Then I hit post. The response was immediate. People started asking questions. Wait, he wanted access to everything before the wedding? Why was a lawyer involved? That letter is wild. Daniel's narrative cracked. His friends stopped commenting. The post was shared once, then twice, then more. People I'd never met weighed in, mostly on my side. 2 days later, my phone rang. "Margaret, you've humiliated my son," she snapped. "I corrected lies," I said. "There's a difference. You had no right to post that letter." "You had no right to send it," I replied. She hung up on me. I sat there afterward, heart racing, hands shaking, not with fear, but with adrenaline, because I finally understood something. They weren't upset that I left. They were upset that I couldn't be controlled quietly. A month passed. The noise died down the way all online outrage eventually does. Slowly at first, then all at once. People stopped tagging me. Daniel stopped posting. Margaret went silent. And for the first time in a long while, my house felt like mine again. I kept the venue reservation. Not out of spite, but because I refused to let the story end on their terms. I told my friends and family the truth. "This isn't a wedding," I said. "It's a thank God I didn't get married party." They came in droves. My sister made a toast. "To Evelyn," she said, lifting her glass, "for trusting her instincts and dodging a missile." The venue staff loved it. They even gave me a discount on the bar, saying it was the most honest event they'd hosted all year. I laughed more that night than I had in months. Through mutual friends, I heard the rest. Daniel moved back in with his mother. He quit his job, said he needed time to reset. And, this part mattered, someone from his office reached out to me privately. She told me Daniel and Margaret had been talking about my assets months before the ultimatum. Planning, strategizing, and then there was the final piece. Margaret's late husband, Daniel's father, had left most of his estate to children from a previous marriage. Margaret had been financially cut out after their separation. She wasn't protecting her son. She was rewriting her own past. In mid-November, I got a text from Daniel. "I'm sorry, I was wrong. Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, "There's nothing to talk about. You showed me who you are. I believe you." I blocked his number. 4 months later, I'm still single. Still in my house, still driving my SUV, still sleeping soundly. People ask if I'm bitter. I'm not. I'm clearer. The $15,000 stung, but not as much as losing my home would have. I consider it tuition. The cheapest education I ever got on boundaries, manipulation, and the difference between love and leverage. If someone starts counting my assets before counting my feelings, I'm out. Life's too short to wonder whether someone loves you or what you own.